I don't think I fully realized that I was gay before this happened, but I used to go on these like sailing, surfing trips with my dad and his best friend and his son Colin, who was a few years older than me. And I remember like being pretty excited every time I saw Colin, like in a confusing way. Like I would see him and I just remember like wanting to look at him and being like pretty infatuated with him. I mean, he was dreamy, okay? So one time, the four of us are sailing out to the islands for like a 3-day surf trip. So we're all wearing board shorts, it's super windy, and Colin is sitting at like a 90-degree angle to me. And the way he was sitting and the way the wind was blowing was making it so his shorts kept flapping open in the wind. And from where I'm sitting, I can't help but notice that every time his shorts flap open, I'm getting a full-on visual shot of his goods. And as we're sailing from Anchorage to Anchorage, Colin kept sitting in the exact same seat. So of course I kept sitting in my favorite seat and I kept getting great shots. Now I was being discreet on the first day, but on the second day, Colin's sitting there and I'm just like literally daydreaming, staring. I don't think it was even intentional. I just like, my eyes were drawn. I couldn't help it. But anyways, I'm staring and I look up and Colin is staring right at me. He definitely knew exactly what I was looking at because he closed his legs, gave me kind of like a semi-shocked look, and then looked away. I'm freaking out at this point. Like I'm feeling like he just caught me. I'm feeling humiliated. I'm feeling excited. I'm terrified that he's going to tell my dad what I was looking at. Like completely in shock. But as I'm sitting there panicking, about a minute or two later, Colin opens his legs back up and positions himself like perfectly so that everything is even more visible than it had been before. So I couldn't tell if he was like positioning himself this way on purpose or if he had just not noticed what I was actually looking at. I don't know. But either way, I went back to enjoying the view. Now, as I'm just sitting there enjoying the view again, Colin makes eye contact with me again. And he keeps doing that every single time that I glance over. He's staring right at me. But then he keeps putting his leg back in the same position. So now I'm really freaking confused. So I'm excited. I'm scared. I'm freaking out because I have to share a cot with this guy that's like tiny and we're basically pressed up against each other. And I'm honestly like worried that he's going to start talking to me about it that night. So flash forward to that night, everybody's going to bed and it's time for me and Colin to go to our cabin. So I brush my teeth and like go in the cabin. I get right under the covers and I'm like on my side, covering my face, like hoping that he's not going to talk to me, right? So Colin comes in and he starts chatting with me about the surf that day. It doesn't bring up anything about what he saw me looking at. And as we're chatting about the surf, Colin starts getting ready to get into bed too. And he just starts taking off his clothes right in front of me. Everything. He has never done that before. But he strips down everything and he climbs into bed next to me. So now I'm confused as hell laying in bed next to a naked guy for the first time ever. I'm not even like fully sure that I'm gay, but I'm definitely aware that this is like really exciting to me. I mean, there's certain parts of my body that are bringing my full attention to the fact that I am very excited by the fact that this guy is laying right next to me. So I'm laying there on my side in a fetal position, like trying to make sure that Colin doesn't realize how excited I am. And Colin went from like chatting to me about the surf to like dead silence when he got into bed. It was really awkward. It felt like it went on for minutes, but it was probably more like 10 seconds. And then I just blurted out, I was like, "Are you sleeping naked?" Colin just is casually like, "Yeah, I always sleep naked at home." He went on to explain that it was like way more comfortable. We're both guys and it doesn't matter. And he asked me if I ever slept naked. I told him that I didn't. I always sleep in my boxers. And then he starts telling me that he thinks I should try sleeping naked and that I probably would like it. Now at this point in my head, I'm like, oh my God, yes. Yes, I want to get naked with you and sleep with you and cuddle with you all night long. Like in my head, it's like one of the cute little romantic scenes in the cartoons where there's like two little heart emojis popping over their head. But in reality, I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm totally freaked out and nervous. So I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. So Colin just kind of laughs at that. And then he starts making fun of me for being shy and that I'm embarrassed and don't want anybody else to like see my thing. But he didn't push me and we like left it at that and we both fell asleep. Now, when I say we both fell asleep, what I really mean is both of us acted like we were asleep. So as the night goes on and we're both drifting further and further into sleep, there's a lot of tossing and turning that starts to happen. And this tossing and turning leads to like Colin's arm pressed right up against my butt, my arm spread across Colin's very muscular chest, Colin's leg pushed in between my legs. There were a lot of like, oops, I rolled over and now I'm pressed up against this kind of things happening. This literally went on the entire night. So eventually I actually did fall asleep, and when I woke up, I noticed that there was something poking me. And this is literally my dream come true at this point. Like, remember the heart emoji cartoon that I was talking about in the last one? That's going off in my head again. I am like losing my mind at how excited I am. But I'm also extremely nervous. Like, I'm not even fully aware that I'm gay yet. I'm just aware that this is super exciting to me. So I'm laying there just like too nervous to even move. My head is moving at like a mile a second, thinking like, oh my God, what is he thinking about right now? What is his dream? I wonder if I can measure how big it is just on feel alone. Stuff like that. And then as I'm laying there paralyzed, thinking about all this stuff, without even like consciously deciding to do this, all of a sudden, I push back. And then I feel it move, and then Colin wakes up. Colin rolls over, and I'm just laying there like pretending to be asleep, praying that he doesn't realize that I was actually awake and aware of what was going on too. So we're both laying there a few more minutes, and then Colin gets up and gets out of bed. So before I'm even out of bed, I'm now so worked up at this point. Like, I am already thinking about what our last night in that cot is going to be like together. I'm kind of beating myself up for like not letting him convince me to take my boxers off and sleep naked too. And I don't know how I'm going to get up the courage to do it, but in my head, I decide that I really, really want to sleep with him that way that night. So I get out of bed too. I go up to the deck of the boat. The dads come out, they're like cooking breakfast for us. Colin and I aren't saying a word to each other. It's like super awkward. The dads must have known something was up. But as the day went on, things kind of like mellowed out. Colin and I started chatting like usual. Colin went back to sitting in his same spot and positioning himself so that I could see right up his shorts again. And I went back to enjoying the view and daydreaming about what was maybe going to happen that night. The flash forward to that night and it's time to go to bed again. And Colin and I both went to bed extra early this night. Okay, but if our dads ask, we were both just really tired from surfing and had to crash early. No big deal. So I get into bed in my boxers, and Colin comes in and strips everything down again and gets into bed next to me. He actually didn't even say anything about me sleeping in boxers this time, so I actually brought it up and was like, is it really that much more comfortable to sleep naked? And he said that yes, it was again. And it took like zero convincing for me to take off my boxers this time. So now we're both laying in bed next to each other naked. There's really not much talking and we both go right to bed again. And when I say go to bed, what I mean is we both fake being asleep again so that we can toss and turn all night and bump up against each other. Unlike the first night where we're like tossing and turning the whole night and pretending to bump up against certain things, this night I just kind of like roll over to my side. And to my surprise, Colin rolls right over with me and basically starts spooning me. Like, his arms aren't wrapped around me or anything, but he is pressed up against me. Like, let me clarify. I can feel him pressed up against me. So I lay there with him pressed up against me and pretend to go to sleep. And as I'm pretending to be asleep, I can tell that Colin is really excited. And I'm pretty damn sure that Colin is pretending to be asleep too. So after about 10 minutes, I roll over. Like, I'm still pretending to be asleep, but I roll over and kind of like accidentally put my arm over Colin's stomach, and my leg kind of ends up like wedged in between his legs. Like, I'm on my back now and he's still on his side, like laying facing towards me. And I am super nervous right now because like my hand is super close to him. My leg is like in between his legs. Again, I'm not even fully aware that I'm gay at this point. I'm just aware that this is beyond exciting to me. And in my head, I'm feeling like, holy shit, I should not be doing this. Like, this is not okay. I'm gonna get in trouble or somebody's gonna catch me. Or just in general, it is not fucking okay. But it was not my head calling the shots anymore. There was a different part of me running the show. So I laid there waiting to see what happened. And as I continued laying there, Colin starts moving his hand closer to, how do I say this without getting in trouble? Parts of his body. And I am fully aware of what's happening, but I'm still pretending to be asleep. And I really don't think I can go into any further detail about this. But let's just say Colin must have finished the job because a couple minutes later he got up and went to the bathroom. And when he came back, he laid back down and went to sleep. Like, there was no more cuddling or anything that happened the rest of the night. And we woke up the next morning and didn't even talk about it. So I learned a lot about myself on that trip, but my main takeaway at that point in time was that I really wanted to go on more sailing trips with Colin. I mean, have you guys seen surfing pics of me? Like, I didn't get this good at surfing just because I really, really like surfing. I got this good at surfing because there's a lot of cute fucking guys that surf. And so that Colin and I could go on more and more surf trips together.